All right, let's set the scene. You're driving, maybe your favorite music is on, everything feels totally normal. Then, out of nowhere, the car in front of you just slams on its brakes. We've all been there, right? It's a moment every single driver knows. But what's actually happening in those few critical seconds?
You know, we all like to think we've got lightning-fast reflexes that we can react in the blink of an eye. But the truth is, when you're behind the wheel, the gap between seeing a problem and your car actually doing something about it, well, it's a lot longer and a lot more dangerous than you probably think.
So let's do this. We're going to hit the pause button on that heart-stopping moment. We're going to break it all down second by second, meter by meter. We're going to look at the hidden physics and, the biology that decides whether you stop safely or not.
Okay, so you're back in the car. Those brake lights ahead of you just flashed bright red. Let's freeze time, right here. Because before your foot even thinks about moving towards that brake pedal, your brain has a whole bunch of work to do. Let's see what happens first.
This is the first and honestly the most crucial phase. And it's totally invisible. It's that delay, the gap between something happening out there on the road and your body physically starting to respond. We call it reaction time.
So what even is reaction time? Well, it's not just a single instant, like a camera flash. It's actually a period of time, a whole process that has to play out first in your mind and then in your body before you even begin to move.
Think about what's going on in your head. First, your eyes see the brake lights. That's step one, perception. Then, your brain has to analyze it. Whoa, that car's stopping fast. Then comes the decision. Okay, I need to brake like right now. And only then does your brain finally send the signal down to your foot to actually move. It feels instantaneous, but it's really a four-step chain of events.
So how long does all that take? For a driver who is alert, who's paying attention, it takes about 1 full second. And listen, no matter how good of a driver you are, you can't make this zero. It's just a biological fact. So for 1 entire second, your car is still barreling forward at full speed while your brain is basically just catching up to reality.
And that brings us to the really big question, right? 1 second, it doesn't sound like a lot of time. But when you're in a moving car, what does that second actually look like in terms of pure distance?
Okay, so how far is that really? There's actually a great little mental shortcut for this. Just take the first digit of your speed in kilometers per hour and multiply it by 3. So if you're going 50 kilometers per hour, you travel a pretty shocking 15 meters. That's about 3 car lengths before your foot even touches the brake pedal. And at 100 kilometers per hour, that distance jumps to 30 meters. That's all the ground you cover in that hidden reaction distance.
All right, so your brain has finally done its job. Your foot is now slammed on the brake pedal. Phase 1 is over. Now we get to phase 2. And this is where the cold, hard laws of physics take complete control.
This part is called the braking distance. And it sounds pretty simple, right? It's just the distance your car needs to stop once the brakes are actually working. But the way this distance changes with your speed, well, that's where things get really interesting.
So here's a question for you. This is one of the most counterintuitive things about driving. Let's say you go from driving 50 kilometers an hour to 100. You've just doubled your speed. So does your braking distance just double too?
The answer is a huge no. It doesn't double, it quadruples. And this isn't a suggestion, it's a non-negotiable law of physics. See, your car's kinetic energy, the energy of its motion, is tied to the square of its speed. So when you double your speed, you're actually creating 4 times the energy that your brakes have to work to get rid of. And that means you need 4 times the distance to stop.
Okay, so now we've got our 2 key pieces of the puzzle. We have the distance you travel while your brain is reacting, and we have the distance your car travels while the brakes are on. Let's add them up and see what the real total stopping distance actually is.
So, what's the grand total? At 50 kilometers an hour, your total stopping distance is about 25 meters. A neat little rule of thumb here is to just take the first digit of your speed and square it. So 5 times 5 gets you 25. But what about at 90 kilometers an hour? Well, using that same rule, 9 times 9 is 81 meters. 81 meters, that is nearly the entire length of a football field to bring your car to a complete stop.
Look, understanding all this physics is great, but let's be real. Nobody's out there on the highway doing these kinds of calculations in their head. So how do we actually use this information? We need a simple, practical tool that works in real time. And that tool is the 2-second rule. This is how you build a safety bubble around your car, and it's incredibly easy to do. All you have to do is pick a fixed point on the road ahead, say a signpost or a tree. As soon as the car in front of you passes it, you start counting slowly, 1001, 1002. If your car passes that same spot before you finish saying 2, you're following too closely. Simple as that. You gotta back off.
And this is so important to remember. 2 seconds is the absolute minimum, and that's for perfect dry conditions. If it's raining and the roads are wet, you need to double it to 4 seconds. If you're tired, if it's foggy, if you're driving at night, you need to add even more time. What you're doing is giving your brain and your car's brakes the extra buffer they need to handle the unexpected.
When you boil it all down, it comes to this one golden rule. You have to always be able to stop your car within the distance that you can see is clear ahead of you. It doesn't matter if that distance is defined by a curve in the road, the crest of a hill, or just how far your headlights reach in the dark.
So, the next time you get behind the wheel, I want you to think about this. You now understand that hidden delay inside your own brain and the unforgiving physics of a moving car. The only question left is, will you use that knowledge to build yourself a life-saving buffer?